Federalism also helps us it assists us in making problems local and being able to address them in the most efficient way possible at the local level. The federal government has even recognized this, and since the 1990s has provided more block grants to states so that each state has a certain amount of monetary aid, but is then able to distribute it to its own needs. Keeping that in mind, I think that the people who are closest to the problem are best able to solve it, which is why American federalism helps us with service and civic participation, because if we are close to our problems, we are going to engage ourselves to solve those things, even if we require some assistance from the federal government.
But how does all of that square with the fact that the lowest turnout in elections always is at the local level? In some places it's as low as 10% of the people.
Well, Russell Dalton, who gave the quote that started off our question in his book, The Good Citizen, stated that we're moving away from the duty-bound citizen to the more engaged citizen. So although you see voter participation lower on the local level, we do see civic engagement and community service increasing over the past few years, and that's been a trend that we have to deal with, but we still recognize that it is contributing to the vitality of civic responsibility and civic engagement.
Recently in our community, we had a school board election, and about 7,000 out of 40,000 people showed up to vote. While I realize that that is not that high of a turnout, members of our community have found other ways to try and improve the situation of our budget. There have been many local campaigns by students who try to encourage others to realize what the extent of the problem.
I wouldn't argue that it was a low turnout. Last year's turnout, we barely received 4,000 votes. We nearly doubled the votes. And I think it's due just because of the severity of the issue this year. We were, the seniors in our high school, they truly took a step into understanding and trying to understand the issues this year. Many times for the past 2 years in my high school, seniors, they just disregarded the budget cuts. They made it an event to vote against it just for fun. This year, we actually took the time to discuss it, and we even held a day in our school to discuss it, where students can come in and ask the teachers questions on how it would directly affect them.
Another aspect of local elections is that we don't have such an extensive media
You finish your sentence.
We don't have such an extensive media covering our local elections, whereas national elections become much more politicized as large organizations are able to cover it and offer insightful opinions.
Thank you very much.
Yes, I enjoyed your opening statement very much. Admired the widespread participation among you as team members. I think that you're introducing the idea of federalism and its increasing opportunities. You probably missed a chance in your initial presentation to support it, which had to be drawn out in a question and answer series. But if you introduce something as a vehicle that is going to solve some of the problems, it really is incumbent to give us some specific examples. I thought your answer on what government ought to do to provide equal opportunity or a multiplicity of opportunities was very good, and I enjoyed hearing you.
Thank you. I know everybody might be nervous this early in the morning. This is you guys are General Motors, and this is the Senate Budget Committee. Wondering what's going on, but you guys did a fantastic job. I just want to compliment you on your presence, and I knew you guys were a good team yesterday when I heard you yesterday afternoon. I thought that the written testimony was great, but really what shows how much you know and how much you've learned are some of the examples that you've given. You've given examples from, I think, a lot of different areas and different communities, and I'm not really sure if you've gotten those from the news sources or in your typical daily reading, but it was very good. I thought that maybe we would like to hear more about specifically some of the ways that thinking outside of the box that we can change the system. because I think that there is a widening gap amongst folks when it comes to income, and then income turns into whether they can go to college or not. And I think that we've done a lot of different things like affirmative action, but there might be other minimum wage laws and things like that to protect, at the very least, a minimum. Maybe that there are other things. So just thinking outside of the box. Overall, you guys did a fantastic job. Really proud you guys are here.
Well, I agree with all of what they said. I did like the fact that you brought some personal examples in. Perhaps there were a couple of spots where you could have said how generalizable those examples are, but I thought the personal examples were good. You grabbed onto my raw meat question about points for affirmative action. I thought you handled that well. Just look around this room. You are now one of a very small percentage of people who have ever sat in those chairs and had a chance to testify and give your expression. I hope a lot of you will come back, not as the incriminated, but as those who can enlighten, who can enlighten the people who sit up on these chairs, because it's a great accomplishment that you have made, and I think you're on a trajectory for being some of these competent citizens that Tocqueville talked about. Thank you very much.
Thank you.